Mark adjusted the towel draped over my back, his movements precise yet somehow incredibly gentle, a stark contrast to the rough day I'd endured at the office. The air in the dimly lit massage room was thick with the calming scent of lavender and eucalyptus, a deliberate attempt to whisk away the urban chaos that clung to me like a second skin. I'd booked this session on a whim, a desperate plea for an hour of pure, unadulterated escapism, never truly expecting to find myself captivated by the man whose strong, knowing hands were now kneading the tension from my shoulders. Mark wasn't overtly handsome in a conventional sense. His charm lay in the quiet confidence that radiated from him, in the way his eyes, when they occasionally met mine in the dimly lit room, held a surprising depth of understanding, an almost unspoken recognition. As he worked on my neck, his thumbs pressing into those knots that had taken up permanent residence, I found myself increasingly aware of his proximity, the warmth radiating from his body, the subtle scent of his cologne mingling with the massage oils. It was a purely professional setting, of course, and I reminded myself of that fact repeatedly, yet there was an undeniable current, a subtle undercurrent of something more, something that made the hairs on my arms stand on end without any apparent reason. He moved around the table, his movements fluid and practiced, and when his fingers brushed against the sensitive skin of my inner thigh as he adjusted a sheet, a spark ignited, tiny but insistent, that I quickly tried to extinguish, attributing it to mere nerves or an overactive imagination. I closed my eyes, trying to focus on the rhythmic pressure, on the release of tension, but my mind kept drifting to the quiet intensity of his presence, wondering about the stories his hands could tell, the secrets they might hold. The thought, unbidden and almost scandalous, made a faint blush creep up my chest, a reaction I hoped was imperceptible in the low light. As Mark transitioned his focus to my legs, his hands, still remarkably gentle, seemed to allow their weight to settle just a fraction longer than strictly necessary on the taut muscles of my hamstrings, imparting a subtle yet persistent warmth that had absolutely nothing to do with the well-calibrated temperature of the massage table itself. I found myself instinctively, almost imperceptibly, shifting my position, attempting to project an air of complete relaxation and comfort, yet the truth was, an undeniable and resonant hum had distinctly begun to vibrate deep within me. A quiet, almost breathless anticipation for his very next movement, for the impending, tender brush of his skin against my own. The soft, ambient music that filled the room, which had previously served merely as an unobtrusive backdrop, now seemed to subtly quicken, throbbing in an uncanny, almost perfect rhythm with the accelerated beat of my own pulse. An almost imperceptible quickening that only I, in the privacy of my own heightened awareness, could truly discern, or at least, that was my fervent hope. He then gracefully reached my feet, and as his knowing fingers began to expertly massage my arches, his thumb meticulously tracing the sensitive curve of each foot, a soft, almost involuntary sigh escaped my lips. A sound that was perhaps a little too audible, a little too revealing in its sheer, unadulterated contentment. Then, with an unexpected and almost startling subtlety, the entire dynamic of the session shifted. He did not simply move, as expected, to my other leg. Instead, I felt a deliberate, almost imperceptible redistribution of his weight, followed by a gentle settling, a soft and growing pressure that quickly solidified into a definite, undeniable presence on the massage table directly beside me. My eyes, startled and wide, instantly flew open, a surprised gasp catching momentarily in my throat as the profound realization dawned upon me. He was no longer standing over me, but was now unequivocally sitting on the very edge of the table. His hip pressing with a surprising intimacy against my outer thigh, a tangible warmth radiating from his body that felt incredibly, undeniably personal. "Just getting a better angle for your quads," he murmured, his voice a low, resonant rumble surprisingly close to my ear, and although his perfectly reasonable explanation was entirely plausible in a professional context, the sudden and dramatic shift in our physical proximity, the unprecedented sharing of such confined space, sent an exhilarating jolt of something akin to delicious panic surging through every fiber of my being. His hand, now moving with a newfound intent to my thigh, felt distinctly different, less clinical and more profoundly deliberate, and I could feel the intense heat of his palm seeping effortlessly through the thin barrier of the towel. A pervasive warmth that seemed to propagate and spread through my entire body, systematically dissolving any lingering pretense of professional distance that I might have desperately tried to maintain. The unique scent of him, which had previously been merely subtle and fleeting, now intensified dramatically, becoming a potent and intoxicating mixture of the soothing essential oils and his own distinct, uniquely masculine musk. and I found myself involuntarily inhaling deeply, drawing him further and deeper into the very core of my senses. My heart, a frantic drumbeat against my ribs, hammered wildly, a relentless rhythm against the soft, calming lull of the background music, and I knew, with an absolute and terrifying certainty that was both exhilarating and profoundly unnerving, that this was irrevocably no longer just a massage. The air in the room, already thick and saturated with the calming yet potent scent of various essential oils, seemed to palpably crackle with an unspoken and almost electric energy. A tangible tension that vibrated rhythmically between us as Mark's considerable presence settled with undeniable weight and intention more fully onto the cushioned surface of the massage table. Hey, thanks for watching until this point. Please leave a comment if you're enjoying the video. It really helps us grow the channel and reach more people. And hey, thank you very much. Let's get back to story. His seemingly innocent and perfectly plausible explanation, delivered in that low, resonant rumble, floated almost weightlessly in the space that now felt impossibly intimate between us, yet the undeniable and growing pressure of his hip against mine, coupled with the radiating warmth emanating steadily from his body, rendered his words utterly and profoundly meaningless in the face of the burgeoning reality. My mind, which was typically so remarkably adept at rationalizing every situation and meticulously compartmentalizing every single sensation, now felt deliciously and pleasantly muddled, caught in an exhilarating and precarious limbo between the deeply ingrained professional decorum of the established situation and the undeniably powerful magnetic pull that had so suddenly and assertively asserted its dominance. His hands, which just moments before had been so expertly and methodically kneading the stubborn knots of tension from my quads, now seemed to deliberately pause, hovering for a suspended, breathless moment before his thumb embarked upon a slow, almost imperceptible tracing along the exquisitely sensitive inner curve of my upper thigh, a feather-light touch so delicate it sent an immediate cascade of goosebumps erupting across every inch of my skin. It was a gesture that was unequivocally too tender, too intimately suggestive for what was supposedly a standard massage session, and yet, despite this glaring deviation from protocol, I found myself utterly and completely unable to move, held captive in a delicious and intoxicating blend of profound surprise and something far more potent, something akin to a burgeoning, undeniable desire. I found myself instinctively holding my breath, a desperate, silent plea not to shatter the fragile, almost magical spell that had been cast, not wanting to disrupt whatever delicate and increasingly intricate dance we were unknowingly yet willingly performing. The soft, ambient music, which had previously faded into an unobtrusive background hum, now seemed to swell dramatically, its gentle, rhythmic melody weaving itself with uncanny precision into the very fabric of this increasingly intimate and undeniably charged moment. Then, with a slow, almost agonizingly deliberate movement, his free hand, which had been resting casually and innocently on the table's surface, began its slow, exploratory journey to trace the gentle curve of my waist. His long fingers brushing with exquisite precision against the thin fabric of the towel before subtly yet purposefully slipping underneath its protective barrier, his warm palm now resting directly and unequivocally against my bare skin. A profound and electrifying shiver, entirely unrelated to the comfortable temperature of the room, cascaded fiercely through every fiber of my being, a primal and visceral response to the unexpected and intensely personal warmth of his touch. My eyes, which had remained tightly closed in a subconscious effort to prolong the exquisite sensation, now fluttered open just slightly, and I felt my lips part almost imperceptibly, a silent yet undeniable invitation, a tacit, unspoken agreement to whatever thrilling and uncertain journey he was so deftly and perhaps dangerously leading us on. There was a moment of profound and absolute stillness that hung heavy in the air, a silent, mutual acknowledgement of the irreversible shift in our dynamic, a thrilling recognition that the established boundaries had not only blurred but had perhaps irrevocably dissolved, and a thrilling sense of unadulterated anticipation began to coil tightly and deliciously in my stomach, forming a warm, exquisite knot of both overwhelming excitement and an almost unbearable trepidation. The profound silence that now enveloped us was no longer merely the predictable quiet of a professional space. It had transformed into a deep, heavy quietude that resonated with a palpable intensity, brimming with unspoken questions and tantalizing possibilities. This intensified stillness seemed to amplify every subtle shift in breath, every barely perceptible rustle of the linen sheet, drawing our awareness to the delicate dance unfolding between us. My body, which just moments ago had been a weary vessel laden with the accumulated tensions of a demanding day, now felt acutely and exhilaratingly alive, every single nerve ending tingling with a heightened, almost electric awareness of Mark's immediate proximity and pervasive warmth. His palm, warm and firm against the bare expanse of my lower back, embarked upon a slow, almost imperceptible upward journey, his fingers splayed ever so slightly, sending a delicious, radiating wave of unfurling heat across my sensitized skin. It was an undeniably sensual movement, a clear and decisive departure from the purely therapeutic touch I had initially expected. Yet it was executed with such a tender and exquisite grace that it felt less like an unexpected invasion and more like an intimate invitation, an exquisite, slow-motion dance of mutual discovery. I found myself instinctively arching my back ever so slightly into his touch, a silent, almost involuntary plea for him to continue to explore further, to deepen this burgeoning connection. As his hand continued its deliberate and gentle ascent, his thumb brushed with exquisite precision against the sensitive curve of my hip bone, sending a distinct jolt of profound pleasure directly to my very core, a sensation that rippled outward through my entire being. Then, with a sigh that was barely audible but profoundly felt, a sound of deep contentment or perhaps a quiet surrender, he shifted his considerable weight once more, and this time, there was absolutely no pretense whatsoever of merely adjusting for a better, more ergonomic angle. He moved further onto the massage table, his entire torso now pressing intimately and directly against my side, and the full, undeniable weight of his body settled with a comforting solidity against mine. His leg, warm and undeniably muscular, nestled itself comfortably and naturally between my own, and his strong, reassuring arm draped itself with a gentle possessiveness over my waist, pulling me even more intimately, more thoroughly closer into his embrace. The sheer audacity of this move, the blatant disregard for conventional, established boundaries, should have logically sent me recoiling in alarm, should have undeniably sparked a torrent of urgent self-preservation, but instead, an overwhelming and profound sense of absolute rightness, of genuine belonging, washed over me with an almost spiritual force. My breath hitched audibly in my throat as his head dipped slowly, and I felt the incredibly soft, tender brush of his hair against my temple, followed immediately by the exquisite, almost feather-light pressure of his lips against my earlobe, a soft, warm caress that sent undeniable shivers cascading deliciously down my spine. "Just relax," he whispered, his voice a low, husky murmur that vibrated directly into the very depths of my soul. "Let go." The simple, potent words, laced with an intoxicating and almost irresistible blend of gentle command and profound tenderness, systematically dissolved any lingering resistance, any last vestiges of apprehension, and I felt myself literally melt into his increasingly encompassing embrace, every single cell in my body responding with eager surrender to the irresistible pull of his enveloping warmth, his powerful presence, and the alluring promise that lingered, unspoken yet undeniably present, between us. The entire world outside the soft, diffused glow of the massage room seemed to completely vanish, meticulously replaced by the all-encompassing, profound warmth of Mark's intoxicating embrace, creating a silent, self-contained universe where only our intimately intertwined bodies existed, breathing and moving as one. His breath, now a soft, rhythmic whisper that ghosted against my earlobe, mingled inextricably with the faint, musky scent of my own skin, forming an intoxicating and singularly unique aroma that felt exclusively, undeniably ours. Any lingering attempts I might have made at maintaining even the faintest semblance of professional distance had, by this point, completely and utterly evaporated, dissolving into the exquisite and undeniable reality of his strong, warm body pressed so intimately and thoroughly against mine. His fingers, which moments before had been resting with such gentle, almost chaste precision on my waist, now began a slow, agonizingly deliberate exploration upwards, meticulously tracing the intricate, sensitive curve of my spine. Each successive touch sending a fresh, potent jolt of electric awareness surging through every nerve ending in my body. It was a journey of undeniable sensuality, a silent, powerful dialogue spoken exclusively through touch, and I found myself instinctively pressing even closer into him, a desperate, unspoken hunger for more. For every possible inch of skin-on-skin contact he was so generously, so daringly offering. Then, with a gentle yet undeniably firm pressure, he subtly turned me onto my back, his body still draped intimately over mine, meticulously maintaining that delicious, unbroken skin-on-skin contact that now felt utterly essential. Our eyes, heavy-lidded and brimming with a shared intensity, met in the dim, evocative light, and in his gaze, I saw not just a burning, reciprocal desire, but a profound and almost ancient understanding. A clear reflection of the unspoken yearning that had been building with such relentless force between us throughout the session. His free hand, now unfettered and incredibly tender, reached up to gently cup my cheek, his thumb slowly and sensuously stroking the incredibly sensitive skin just beneath my eye, a gesture of such exquisite tenderness that it made my heart ache with a sweet, almost unbearable intensity. He leaned in slowly, his gaze now fixed with singular focus and consuming hunger on my parted lips, and in that charged, breathless silence, I knew, with an absolute and terrifying certainty, what was about to happen, what we were both inevitably, deliciously hurtling towards. His lips, initially soft and almost hesitant, then firm and unequivocally demanding, finally met mine in a kiss that was both a profound question and an immediate, undeniable answer, a scorching culmination of all the lingering touches, the prolonged, knowing silences, the unspoken invitations that had passed between us. It was a kiss that deepened with every passing, agonizing second, exploring, tasting, consuming, and as our mouths moved together with an increasing frenzy, a low groan, raw and primal, escaped from deep within my chest, a sound of pure, unadulterated release and burgeoning pleasure. His hand, as if guided by an unseen force, slid further down my body, a deliberate, unmistakable pressure against my swelling erection which pulsed insistently through the thin barrier of the towel, explicitly acknowledging the undeniable physical response that had been building to this very incandescent moment. The entire world tilted wildly on its axis, and in that incandescent instant, there was nothing, absolutely nothing, but the searing, all-consuming heat of our bodies pressed desperately together, the ravenous, desperate hunger of our lips locked in a timeless embrace, and the intoxicating, liberating realization that just a massage had, with breathtaking speed and profound intensity, transformed into something immeasurably, exhilaratingly, gloriously more. The aftermath of that fiery kiss was a whirlwind of soft sighs, lingering touches, and a profound sense of shared intimacy that settled over us like a comforting blanket. Our lips, still tingling from the electric contact, parted slowly, reluctantly, leaving a sweet, almost metallic taste in my mouth. I kept my eyes closed for a moment longer, savoring the residual heat of his body pressed against mine, the comforting weight of his arms still draped over my waist, the soft, rhythmic rise and fall of his chest against my side. The scent of him, now a comforting mix of sweat, massage oil, and his own unique musk, filled my senses, a potent reminder of the incredible boundary we had just crossed. When I finally opened my eyes, it was to find his gaze still fixed intently on mine, his eyes, dark and soulful, reflecting a mixture of tenderness, surprise, and a clear, undeniable longing. He shifted slightly, creating a tiny bit of space between us, but his hand remained firmly on my hip, a silent anchor. A faint, almost bashful smile played on his lips, and he cleared his throat, a low, rumbling sound that seemed to reverberate through my chest. So he began, his voice a little rough, a little breathless. That was definitely not just a massage, was it? A genuine laugh, light and unburdened, bubbled up from within me, and I shook my head, still smiling, a warmth spreading through me that had nothing to do with the heated table. No, I confirmed, my voice equally soft, it most certainly was not. There was a comfortable silence then, a quiet understanding passing between us, a shared acknowledgement of the intensity of the moment and the unexpected turn our professional encounter had taken. He reached up, his thumb gently brushing a stray lock of hair from my forehead, his touch sending another familiar shiver down my spine. I usually don't, well, this doesn't happen, he confessed, his gaze dropping briefly to our intertwined hands before meeting my eyes again, a hint of vulnerability in their depths. But with you, I felt something. His honesty was disarming, and my heart swelled in response. I squeezed his hand gently, a silent invitation for him to continue. The session, which had started with the mundane desire for muscle relief, had somehow spiraled into an electric connection, hinting at possibilities I hadn't even dared to dream of. As the ambient music began to fade, signaling the approaching end of our allotted time, a new kind of anticipation, far more profound and thrilling than any physical release, began to build within me. This wasn't just a fleeting encounter, it felt like the genesis of something profoundly, beautifully, and undeniably more.